Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As everybody can see, Ben is back with us again tonight, and on episode 162, we are going to be doing something not off for us, but a little different, I think. Maybe a little different stride. So, Ben's idea, why don't you walk us through it, Ben?
Well, I wanted to talk about something that personally I struggle a little bit more than I'd love to admit. But hey, we're here, and I don't think anyone thinks I'm perfect. If you follow us, you know we make mistakes. We do not hide our mistakes. Here, live and true. So it's
As
pack
my
lists.
mic is falling off the desk here.
Pack lists. So every time you go camping, hiking in the woods, you really should identify what you need to take, and it really helps creating a little list, making sure you have all the things helps, and it's, believe it or not, a really good way to lower your weight and better organize for your trip. And I try to do them, and I generally forget, and what I end up doing is grabbing a whole bunch of stuff, throwing it in the pack, saying that'll be good enough, and then getting out there and realizing I have a whole bunch of stuff I really probably don't need, and I'm always missing one thing that would have been nice, but I don't really need it. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through and come up with more or less a basic pack list. This doesn't mean that you can't go in the woods without any of these items, or that it's absolutely every item you're ever going to want, but it's more or less a basic pack list. It's a pretty good idea to have these. It's a good starting point for people to work with. So what we'll probably do, and I think Robert has it set up, is we're going to throw up that list as we go. It won't necessarily be up there all the time, but we'll list things and we'll talk about why we think those should be on the list and what some other things should be. So this is a multi-day, but not necessarily, a month long or a super long trip, but like an overnight or two. Basic pack, and obviously, if you're going for a little bit longer, you may need more food, or you may more of this or that. But it's just a basic thing, and once you get that, you can use that to sort of create your own and sort of figure out. And if you see something that you think we're missing that's essential that we should always have, definitely, comment on it. I'm just writing down ideas because I don't want to forget. And we'll discuss them. And it doesn't have to be during the podcast. If you want to bring it up later, we could often do an episode on any one of these items, really. In fact, we have done on most of the things here. We have done an episode on some of these things. So without further ado, Robert, did you want to add anything before we start?
No. Much like yourself, Ben, I think it's a great idea simply because, like you said, hopefully people will learn from the checklist we put forward. It's not the be-all to end-all. You have to have these items. These are what you must have every single time. It's just things that we're going to be looking at, what would be in our pack. So maybe it'll get you folks thinking about what should go into your pack. And at least, as Ben mentioned, just maybe make your own checklist. Because we've all been out there. Oh yeah, I've checked my bag 100 times. You get out there, oh no, that one thing that I really needed is still at home, sitting on the rack. So yeah, from there, do you mind if I start, or do you got one that you want to throw right out? So the big thing for me, and it was at the top of my list, and it's kind of where I start. I start from the ground up. That's my motto. And I can already see you know where I'm going with this. The proper footwear for where I'm going. And everybody says, oh, that's not a checklist. Well, I don't necessarily mean the boots that are on my feet. If I'm going boating, do I got water shoes or sandals or something like that? Because I can guarantee you if I'm wearing rubber boots in or something like that, I don't want to go boating in them, potentially. If I'm going to be walking through a lot of water, I don't want to be wearing my sneakers in the water. Like, generally, I have a pair of water shoes. I'll throw them in. Or if I know I'm going to be going someplace where I potentially want to go swimming or just walking through the water, make sure you get the footwear for what you're going to do. And for Mel, just pulling an example from her, she'll wear her hiking boots in. The second she gets in, she either goes barefoot or she has basically a pair of outdoor sandals. They're I always call them the gladiator style ones that got like 100 laces on them. But anyway, that's what she likes to wear at the campsite. But if she doesn't have them, that means she's now resorted to either wearing the hiking boots or going solely barefoot. And if you're in a rocky area, that's not great. So for me, it's footwear. Make sure you got the footwear on your feet to get in, and any additional footwear you may want while you're at the site.
Yeah. footwear is extremely important. And if anyone has ever gone camping and lost their footwear while camping, you're going to realize how important that footwear is. Um, I didn't on a camping trip, but I was in a day hike one time. We were swimming. One of my shoes actually fell into the river and went away. We never did find it. And I had to walk back 3 kilometers about with no footwear. That was less than comfortable. So, yes, good footwear. Guaranteed good item to have. Make sure that you have the proper footwear to go with you. And like you said, on a multiple-day trip, it's always good to have a backup pair or a pair to get you around camp. If your feet get sweaty and uncomfortable, it leads to blisters and other issues that you really want to avoid. So being able to keep your feet comfortable and dry is essential for a good trip.
And just to throw it in with footwear, proper socks. Don't wear ankle-high socks in 8-inch high boots. And likewise, you probably don't need knee-highs and sandals. So match your socks with your footwear. Just have a good foot system for what you're going to be doing out there.
Since you threw footwear there, I'm going to say you should always be wearing weather-appropriate clothing. And that's a good way to keep it pretty well generic when you're doing these checklists. So proper pants, shirt, jacket, whatever's appropriate for that particular time of year. And you should have basically at least one backup pair. And that's in case something happens to the pair you're wearing. So one pair that you're wearing and then a pair in your pack. That's a minimum type thing I go with. So you have, if you get wet, if something happens and it gets damaged beyond repair, things like that, you're still covered, you still have clothing. You never know what would happen. I have seen people burn their clothing accidentally, rip it, tear it, fall down, end up using it for band-aids. It's things happen. Like there's no denying it. So.
No, and it's like you said, it's usually the first thing to get damaged.
Yeah. You might as well throw a good hat under.
Let's just do a sub-bracket and include hat. That way we're not making their own topics for...
Yeah.
Because that's all still part of your clothing, right? So footwear and clothing should be a given, but just to put it out there, because honestly, some people do forget, once again, to your cold weather camping, you don't bring warm socks to sleep in. You're going swimming for the weekend, you forget your water shoes. Like sounds like a no-brainer, but just give it a cursory glance as you're planning.
A hat, I rarely take a spare hat. One hat's usually good enough. You lose it, it's not going to be the end of the world. You may be uncomfortable, but you're going to live with it.
Now, what I tend to do with a hat is I always wear my wide brim hat. Everybody see me in the videos and stuff wear it. But Ben has since given me a wonderful fold-up hat. And that sucker actually goes in my bag because there is a lot of times where I prefer to wear a ball cap over the wide brim. I love my wide brim. Thing is, it's hot. It's thick. It's oilskin leather. If you're like doing a lot of work and you're under some brush and stuff, a lot of heat can stay with you, and all you really need is a ball cap. I like it to keep my hair from getting crap in it, honestly, for when I go to sleep, because I have this thing about my hair. If it feels dirty, my whole body feels dirty. It's like my feet and hair. Don't know why. Both ends of my body, if they feel dirty, my whole body feels gross. So I either wear a bandana or hat or something like that to cover my head, and I always have multiple pairs of good socks. But that's just me, and that's my quirkiness. But yeah, a fold-up hat, great thing to throw in the bag if you have another one that you like a wide brim or a Tilly or something like that.
Yeah, I have a variety that I can choose of. I have one like that folding one I got for you, and I love it. I took it last weekend when I was away, and it fits right in my pocket. That's awesome that it really takes up no room. It's lightweight, does a great job of what it does. So the wide brim ones give you a bit more sun protection, a little bit more protection from the rain. But a good hat, at very least the sun can do a lot of damage. If you've ever had heat stroke, you're going to want to know that something like that makes a difference for sure.
Never had heat stroke, had heat exhaustion though.
Yeah.
And it's not fun either.
No, it's not. It's not. And it really leaves you out of sorts for days.
Yeah, it's not something that you're going to sit down, sip some water, and feel fine in 5 minutes. It does take a little recovery time from.
For sure. Okay, so that's what you're wearing. In addition to that, I always have, this is kind of an EDC thing, so a little like we could almost split this as we go. I always have a knife on my person. Uh, just doesn't happen. Except when I'm flying, I feel really naked. I think I would rather go naked and still have a knife than actually not have a knife.
Personal knife. And I'll put that under EDC, and I have a question mark there simply because it's kind of part of the pack, but at the same time, not so much. And I get that. I EDC with a multi-tool. I have a Leatherman. Generally, if I'm just day tripping something like that, that's my EDC. Otherwise, if I'm at work or something like that, I do have a pocket knife that I carry around. Mine's actually out on the table with the rest of my work stuff, but it's a knife with a ferro rod striker in it. And a whistle on it. I think I showed it to you before, Ben, when we were at the little thing there. And that's my EDC knife. That or this one. But, and this one maybe, this one, I actually left it from when I went to Halifax. It's another K-bar kind of knife. But anyway, yeah, very much similar. I can appreciate the personal knife.
Bare minimum for me, Swiss Army knife. Usually in the woods, I think it's a more companion. But either way, I always have at least one knife, generally the two of them. I did see a guy about a month ago. I helped a guy move. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he did send me a link. And you can get a ferro rod that replaces your toothpick on your knife. Now, I would be hard pressed to replace my toothpick because I love it,
and that would be an awful thin ferro rod, I would think.
Yeah, you'd get a spark off it for sure. He showed it to me; it was pretty neat. But yeah, it's an option out there. I've also had ones with pens in them. I really love that too. It comes in handy way more often than you'd think. So, a good knife, especially a multi-tool, something with a few options, the odd screwdriver, bottle opener, can opener, things like that, comes in handy way more often than you'd think. And oftentimes for things that maybe it's not meant for, but hey, does what it does, right?
This coming from a man that made a pencil. Good times. Actually, funny enough, why don't we throw that one on the list, because I did have it on mine. I have a writing utensil and a piece of paper. And a lot of people may ask, well, why do you need that? There's multiple reasons to that. The big one that comes to me, there's multiple big ones that come to me. Sometimes you're just out there and you want to jot something down you don't want to forget. Like, oh, hey, I seen this weird plant, tree, something like that. Here's some of the defining characteristics so I remember. I can look it up when I get home. Worst case scenario, you get turned around, you get lost. You can literally leave a note if you are so inclined to travel and stuff like that, and then we can get into the whole debatingness of staying put or go, yada, yada, yada. But bottom line, you can make a note and leave it for someone else to find. Or even if you're just camping with somebody else, like if Ben and I were out camping, he was away from camp and something came up and I had to leave camp, I can leave a note for Ben and just be like, oh, hey, Ben, I had to run up the river for whatever reason, X reason. It's just that little bit of being able to communicate or jot your thoughts down, and it takes up no room. Golf pencil, sheet of loose leaf, fold it up, wrap it around it, put a piece of tape around it, boom, the whole thing is like smaller than nothing in your pocket.
Those little notebooks, and you get the Right and Rain ones that are kind of neat too. The little like 2 inches by 3 inch style notebooks fits anywhere. So there's always options. Like I said, good writing utensil, whether it be a pen, pencil, Sharpie. I kind of partial to Sharpies for sometimes. And we've pushed this. We used to push it a lot. Was just taking a bit of flagging tape, and then you can write like time and date. And if if you do get lost, you can let them know the last time. Give them a last known position, right?
Yeah. Yep, and you can blaze the trail with flagging tape too.
Save your life, really.
Hey, Duncan, welcome to the show. Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you, buddy. So Duncan just in the comments said first time he's seen a live show in months, and we've noticed. Don't think we don't notice when people disappear. Sometimes we have little private conversations like, oh, I hope, they didn't get bored of us or something like that, but good to see you back, Duncan. So anyway, just because we were talking about that one, we threw it on. The next one I had on my list, Ben, and I don't know which direction you're going for this, is the right pack for the trip you're taking. Don't try... sorry, go ahead.
Top of my list.
Perfect. All right, I'll let you go into it because you're more of a pack person than I am, but I am learning from the best.
Well, can I meet him? But a good pack. I mean, a solid pack makes all the difference in the world. if you don't believe me, go out and buy a really cheap pack, throw a bunch of weight in it, go for a walk, and come back and tell me you're happy with yourself. You're not going to be. Not saying you have to buy the most expensive pack in the world. I've seen some packs that are $500 and $600 and $700 and maybe $1,000, and they didn't impress me that much. I'm not sure they're that much better than my $200 pack. Not that I actually own a $200 pack, but
I got a $150 pack sitting beside me.
probably that. Yeah, taxes and
Oh yeah, taxes in for sure.
squeezing it in. But a good pack, you know, if you're looking for a pack, it has to be the pack for the weight you're carrying. So if you have an ultralight pack, you can get away, believe it or not, with less extras and bells. But then if you have a heavy pack, you're going to want that padded belt. You're going to want those padded straps. You're going to want better weight distribution because you're carrying more weight. I've seen some of the really ultralight ones. They're not much more than a bag with minimal support. It's how they got so light. But then they're only putting a very lightweight sleeping bag in it and very minimal gear. So they can get away with it. They barely notice it's back. There's less than 25 pounds full, including the pack. So,
and my only thoughts on pack is don't take a day pack for a 5-day outing, and you don't necessarily need a 70-liter pack for a day trip.
No.
You know what I mean? So kind of weigh what you're going. And don't get me wrong. If all you have is one pack, make the best of it. You may have to maybe add additional bags and stuff like that, but just be sure you're set up for the trip you're going with. Like Ben said, not only do you have to carry this pack around and deal with all the weight distribution, but if you literally have a day pack, you're not going to get 5 days worth of stuff in it. It's just not going to happen.
It never hurts to do a day trip with a 70-liter pack if you're planning on doing bigger trips, to get used to the pack and how it feels and how it loads, because then when you do the 7-day trip, you're ready for it. If you always went with a 35-liter pack for day trips and then all of a sudden say, oh, I'm doing a 3-week trip and I'm taking this 80-liter pack, you're going to notice the difference and you're not going to be able to do what you did. You're going to have more stuff, but you're not going to be able to travel the same as you did with the smaller, lighter pack. So there's a time and place for it. Consider what you're doing. Consider the future. Make sure you're wearing the right pack. The pack should always be big enough to carry the gear you're carrying, but not so big that your gear is flopping around in it and causing other issues. Me and Robert both err on the caution of overfilling packs and saying, "Oh, it's full."
If I have an 80-liter pack, I'm bringing 80 liters worth of stuff.
Yeah. A lightweight trip for me and Robert is sometimes 50, 60 pounds.
Yep.
And we're pleased with that.
Yeah, my ultralight pack is 44 pounds. My regular pack, 50.
So a good pack.
Yep.
Choose a pack, the best pack you can get reasonably, a pack that fits you well. I'd rather see someone wear a pack that's a little cheaper that fits well than an expensive pack that just doesn't fit them, because it needs to fit you to be good. So a good pack.
And a good place to pick packs up, Value Village. I've gotten some wicked packs from Value Village and just given away to other people. Because they've been like, oh, I wish I had a good backpack. I find one for like $6, and I'm like, holy crap, this is an $80 pack for $6? Just grab it. Somebody will need that pack. Trust me.
So the next big thing I want to put in, and it's just because it's the bulky thing that really affects your pack, is a good sleeping bag. You're going for a multi-night trip, you're probably going to want a sleeping bag. If you want to maximize that checklist, call it a sleep system.
Almost beat you to the point.
Okay. So that could be a quilt. Some people now are really using the quilts because you're not taking extra material and stuff. So a good sleep quilt and a mattress. If you're going on ground, if you're not going on ground, you may not need the mattress, but you may be using an underquilt. So figure out what your sleep system is. Plan that out. Designing a sleep system, we could do a whole show. I'm sure we have, and we will again. A whole show on your sleep system. But just know, pack your sleep system. And that kind of covers it. The next item that I'm going to go to, I'm skipping a few on my list because I'm random thinking. You have a sleep system, make sure you have something that keeps you shelter, tarp/tent.
Yep. Some
people will say that that's part of your sleep system, specifically if you have a good hammock system. Sometimes it's an all-in-one system. So you just add your sleeping bag and you have your complete sleep system. But make sure it's shelter.
I think it's safe to put it like that. What is going to keep you dry and warm?
Yeah, while you sleep, or not. Like with shelter, sometimes it's just during the day, sitting down, relaxing, having your coffee while it rains. Uh, so keeping shelter is important, but sometimes you can't be stationary all the time. You still need to be dry. Rainwear. Take something that keeps you dry. Now, there's a lot of options out there, and one of them is a garbage bag. Right? I have done the garbage bag method. It works very fine. Right up to $150 proper, expensive rain gear system. And I say 150, it's a random number I'm choosing. I mean, you can probably buy them a hell of a lot more.
I was going to say, no word of a lie, I've had rain gear up to $500. $250 coat, $250 pants. Now, to be fair, most of this is going to be from my motorcycling side of stuff. And I've learned one thing. Rain gear is great. Eventually, it's a deterrent to get wet, is what it is. But eventually you get wet, either from the inside out or the outside in, but you always eventually get wet. So that's where your shelter has to be so important as well. Don't get me wrong. It's not soaking wet. You're on a motorcycle, sometimes it's soaking wet. But in the woods, generally, you may just get a little damp, but it's a dampness that you can recover from fairly easy than if you had got soaking wet. A little fire, and you can dry right out. Make sense, Ben? Did that ever kind of make sense? Because I've used a garbage bag too, and when I say from the inside out, that's generally your body perspires, even when you're not hot, stuff like that. We lose a lot of water throughout the day. That moisture is eventually going to collect on the inside of any rainwear that's 100% waterproof, and it's going to start coming back at you.
We've actually discussed this in past episodes. Anyone who goes back through them, anyone who's overwatched this. Rain gear, like a true good breathable rain gear, we've yet to discover it, but if it exists, that would be awesome. If you're dry from the weather outside, you're sweating and air is stuck inside. So take it with a grain of salt. One guy I seen, he wears a rain skirt and a small jacket, and he's like, I'm as dry as I'm going to be. And so find a system that works for you, that keeps you happy. The real deal is you're trying to keep the majority of the moisture off you, and you should have a dry set of clothes somewhere else. So when it stops, you can get into that dry clothes and dry it off, dry your wet clothes as you can. So
refer to number 2 on our list: appropriate clothing and your extras for the trip.
Yeah, it's hard not to have it, and it's easy to say, oh, I only need one outfit, and maybe you do, but honestly,
I've listened to these ultralighters who wear their underwear one way once, the next way the other way. You know what? I like clean underwear every day.
Front, back, inside out, front,
Same
back.
as socks. Yeah. I prefer clean socks every day too. Once again, I don't like my feet feeling gross. Anyway,
inside socks do not feel any better than outside.
No, sometimes they're worse.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
yeah, underwear and socks, I always have a pair for every day and one extra in case I need it.
Yep.
That seems like a lot to some people, and if you have the ability to clean while you're out there, you can definitely reduce that. But plan for that. Like if that's what you're going to do, make sure you have some kind of cleaning ability to clean your clothes. I mean, I've heard of people with little sheets that you can dissolve in water in a small container to clean your clothes, or just keeping a little container of detergent. Whatever it takes for you to do it. But clean clothes, wash your socks regularly and dry them, or have enough pairs. Socks don't take that much room, and I'd rather have personally a handful of lightweight socks than 2 or 3, only be able to take 1 or 2 thick socks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sock is a sock. In real cold weather, yes, you'll want the insulated ones, but take appropriate socks and a significant number, an adequate number of them. So that covers your shelter type things for now, unless we come across something else.
Never mind, as we whip down through. The next big one for me, and it might be somewhere on yours there too, I assume, is water. Make sure you have some availability to have water for when you're out there for the length of time you're going to be out there. Don't bring just a 500 milliliter bottle and expect to last the whole weekend. You can bring the 500 milliliter bottle, but back it up with some sort of way to disinfect some water while you're out there, and know that you have a water source while you're out there. Make sure you have enough water for your trip. And I mean, Ben and I, we've gone out with our Sawyer minis and we've used them exclusively for the trips. That way we don't have to pack water in, we don't have to pack water out, we don't have to boil it. It all works out good. But I mean, have that in mind, that you're going to have adequate water for how long you're out there, because, you know, it doesn't take long without water to really get in trouble.
Yeah. And you have lots of options, people. You can boil the water. You can use chlorinating tablets. You can use water purification tablets. You can use the Sawyer Mini. I said boil. Like you have options. Use them. The trick with a little bit of chlorine and just put like 3 drops per so many liters. That's cool. But choose the method you're going to use and make sure you have adequate. Like you said, for a good trip, it's hard to take enough water. So having the ability to make or find water makes a big difference. Rain collection systems is another good one, but make sure your tarps are clean and adequate for it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, on rain collection, the big one that people forget about is other animals and stuff are thirsty too. It's not uncommon if you're collecting rain, especially if it's just on a tarp or something like that. Squirrel, mouse, something like that may walk on by for a little drink, and then they urinate or do their number 2 in your water, and now the whole thing's contaminated. So,
I have the couple of hammock systems for my kids, and they came with, as a bonus when we bought it, a water collection system that hooks onto their tarp, and you just screw a bottle into it. Really neat system.
And if you're going to collect water, that was what I was going to say. The best way is so that it goes into a bottle that's too small for something to get inside, or it's filtered in some way. Not filtered, but screened in some way, I should say. Like a little screen on top. Just keeps things, the creepy crawlies out, and the willy wonkies out too, the furry creatures.
Creepy crawlies end up on the tarp, and they will wash in, so I think these do have little screens, so it works out great. Yeah.
2 comments there, Ben. Will you look at your next item, just so we don't miss anything here? Merino wool socks. This is from Duncan. Can be worn twice for sure. No smell. Grip 6 are his favorites. And then Dave joined us here, Real Bug Monkey 1. If nobody's checked him out before, he's got his own YouTube channel too. Be sure to check him out. Some good info over there. Make sure water is available. I've shown up to camp locations where a creek was dry. And that's just what we were saying. Make sure there's water. If you're going to go out and just, I'm going to get water while I'm out there, make sure it's going to be there. Mel and I, just last year, and Ben knows the story, we were going boating. We packed up the boat, the motor, the whole works, and we were going to this lake that we found on Google Maps, and it looked great. We got out there, I held the GPS out, the whole thing. I'm going, Mel, I can't find this lake. And I'm like, we're in ankle deep water, so there's got to be a lake around here somewhere. No, the ankle deep water was the lake at that point. It had just changed over time. The Google Maps photo was 5-6 years old. Something changed. It was gone. It had become literally a trickle of a stream.
I'm disappointed that you forgot to pack the lake. Like,
I know, honestly, right? Like, that's just terrible of me.
I expect more from you. Always bring it to the lake when you're going lake. So yeah, just going through. Definitely, water's a good one. I actually didn't have it, so I had to write it in after. Cook care kit, and that goes hand in hand with water. And I guess I always have a cook kit, and it doesn't have to be much, but you are looking for some basic items: fork, knife, spoon, plate, pot, cup. That's kind of like the minimum for me. Just a basic kit, something you can warm water and cook in, something you can eat off of. You can't eat out of your pot. You can eliminate the plate depending on the meals you're taking. Fork, knife, and spoon, I always like to have those. And a cup, just so that you can boil up water, make your tea, and then cook your food, and then you have your drink and your food. And really have your drinking food. What else do you need? So
I go very minimalistic on this, and Ben has seen it, but I take a GI cup. I didn't go with the aluminum one. I went with the steel one. I prefer steel. I don't know why. As a kid, it was told that I shouldn't use things that you cook or shouldn't cook things with aluminum, blah 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 blah. It's since been proven, or do your own research on it. I'm not going to say anything. But anyway, I bought the stainless steel, a little bit of extra weight, but that is my pot, it's my cup, and I eat out of it kind of deal. Unless I'm going to be frying and stuff like that, and then I do have a separate cook kit for that. But like I said, I go very minimalistic on that. My GI cup has, usually I can do at least an overnighter easy enough with the GI cup. I can usually get away with 3 days if I plan my meals accordingly, have no problems with it. If I'm going to go longer than that, I'm going to take a larger cook kit because I want to probably cook something a little better at that point. But you can go very minimalistic. And as for my fork, knife, and spoon, I take one that's all combined. It's like on one end, it's the fork with a little jagged edge on the side as your knife, and you flip it around, it's got the spoon end. It's all three in one. I have one over there. I would go and grab it, but I actually have grabbed a new thing, and I was going to show you, Ben. If you give me 1 second, it's literally right there.
So just because he's gone and I can talk now, I know I get more time. I have the titanium set and the titanium fork, knife, and spoon that just screw together, so they're separate units. But I do like having the two utensils because it sort of helps sometimes. But,
no, and I agree. Having the multi-utensils is actually a major benefit. My only thing was that you can go very minimalistic for it. Dave, I cut the side out of a 2-liter bottle and milk jug to use as a lightweight cutting board. I never thought of doing that, but that actually is a great idea. You gotta go, Ben?
No, but I will... Just excuse me for 1 second.
Certainly. I'm just going to mute your mic then so you can have your conversation there, buddy. Somewhere I'm going to mute your mic. Right here. Okay. So yeah, the item that I picked up is, I found this at the dollar store, and you can clearly see it actually says the dollar store. It's $3.50, and it's a collapsible bowl. And it's BPA free and all that good stuff, and it folds down really nice. So I'm going to try this a little bit this year. This is literally the first time we've taken it out of the package, as you can see. I thought it was for dog food and stuff, but it's actually a pretty good sized bowl. And this is supposed to be good for like oatmeal and stuff like that, or as Ben is a fan off there, the no meal, which is actually delicious if you haven't tried it. You know, the keto guys actually have done something very right with that one. And that's going to be the new part to my cook kit, because I do like a lot of soupish kind of foods while I'm camping. I like soup. I used to do the Mr. Noodles pretty hard. I've gotten away from them quite a bit, trying to move on to a little better things. But oatmeal's still staple. I still like rice, and I'm hoping this is going to fill in that gap to give me something that's a little nicer to eat out of than just my pot, as well as a second item to eat out of in case Mel comes with me or something like that, because she does rely on my cook kit, and sometimes that gets complicated. But yeah, so dollar store solution right there. Hopefully it works out well. I can go over on the couch and fall directly on the floor. You good to come back to us, Ben? All right, there you go, buddy. Your mic's back on. Yeah, so.
It's a good cook kit's always a great thing. Honestly, that gets you a pretty solid kit right there already. But there's obviously a few things to add in there. First aid kit.
Good call. I didn't actually have that on mine, and it should have been the first thing.
With that, the only caveat I want to add to it, make sure you're packing things you know how to use, and things that you may need. So we've talked about these before, so we don't need to go in great detail, but I think, Robert, you've mentioned it. If there's medications and stuff that you need, have a backup set in there. If there's ailments that you may routinely have, like say you have heartburn a lot, make sure you pack something for your heartburn or indigestion, things like that. Some standard Band-Aids and stuff, some things that you know how to use. Don't pack stuff you don't know how to use. It's a waste. Unless there's somebody coming with you that's more skilled. I happen to oftentimes camp with, MFRs and people like that who are more qualified than I am. And I mean, I'm qualified to teach first aid, so I'm always lucky. I'm pretty qualified, and I'm usually with people more qualified than me. So we oftentimes have pretty elaborate first aid kits, and that's cool.
No, I was just about to say, real good point is bring stuff that you know how to use, and if you have stuff, try to learn how to use it. First aid kits will come with a little book that'll teach you some basics, but they don't teach you everything. So sometimes when you buy first aid kit, pull it apart, make sure you know what everything is. Sometimes you want to change that a little bit to more suit your needs. I tend to throw a lot more bandages in than what comes in a standard first aid kit, because that's what you use a ton of. And when Ben was talking about medications, like, it's starting to be a little new for me because now I take a blood pressure medication. So I have to realize I have to take my pills for every single day that I'm going to be taking those, which isn't so bad because I've always taken a heartburn medication. So now I'm just coupling those up. But I mean, everybody laughs when I say this, but my first aid kit consists of literally this. If the blood's coming out, it keeps it in. If the air isn't going in, it lets it in. If the poop's coming out and it shouldn't be, it makes it stop. And if the poop's not coming out and it needs to, it makes it go. And I mean, that is basically what I define my first aid kit around. It sounds silly, it really does, but all those things are major things that you need to worry about. So if you're bleeding, you got to stop it and you got to keep it clean. If you're with somebody and they have a major impact or something like that and you need to do resuscitation, once again, a little bit more advanced as Ben was talking about there, but even in first aid, you do need to do some basic CPR. I generally have some sort of mouth barrier or something like that thrown in there because you never know, you might stumble across somebody. It's just there in case. I usually throw some Imodium in because the last thing you want is the runs when you're out in the woods because it ruins the trip pretty bad. Same as, believe it or not, I generally every year will buy a bottle of stool softener because once again, you're out there on like a 7-day trek. Halfway through, you tend to start eating not as good as you do at home. If your body's not used to it, it can really do some weird stuff to your stomach, and it's another thing that's going to make your life very miserable while you're out there. And like I said, all sounds foolishness until it happens to you, and they're simple little things that'll just make your life so much easier while you're out there.
A really big monkey makes a really good point. Often keeping your medicines and your first aid kit separate because you may need, you don't want to be going through one when you're looking for the other.
I tend to keep... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of ways to do that, but just figure out what works for you.
So I generally carry 2 types of medicines with me. There is ones I put in my first aid kit. Like I said, that's going to be my Imodiums, my stool softeners, my Tylenols, Benadryl, some basic allergy medication like a reactive. That all goes in the first aid kit because that's first aid stuff. It's not things that I'm looking for on a regular basis. My personal medications stay in a separate bottle with me at all times. Because if I send somebody for my first aid kit, one, I don't want them to assume they know what they're taking and take something that's incorrect. Because if you take too many of my blood pressure medications, that creates more problems while you're out there. Generally, everything I leave in the first aid kit, it's mildly safe. If you accidentally take one, it's not going to ruin your life kind of deal.
Good point. Make sure any medications you have are properly labeled. I have accidentally taken the wrong medication before, and it was miserable. I do not want to experience that again. Somebody's took muscle relaxants in my Dristan box and not end up with the way I wanted it to. An extension to my first aid kit, and I think of it this way, is my hygiene kit. It's not first aid, but it is aid in the fact that if you can keep good hygiene, you're going to be healthier and happier longer. So those are basic things. It's your toothpaste, it's your soap, it's a washcloth, maybe some wet wipes, but take what you need for you. Not everyone's using the same stuff in a hygiene kit, but there is some pretty basic things. Yep. Make sure you have those. If you're a woman and there's things you need for that, take that. Make sure you take the gear you need.
And ladies, don't be embarrassed about it. Once again, I get that a lot when I take people out into the woods. Like if Mel takes some friends, or when Chris used to come out with us, if some of her friends come out, like everybody gets embarrassed by it. Don't worry about it. Be comfortable in the woods. Might all. Big thing. And honestly, you ladies have been hiding this on us guys because that stuff is amazing. Because all it is basically a little stronger Tylenol mixed with caffeine so it reacts faster. And I'm not a doctor, don't quote me on that, but that is kind of basically what it comes as to. And that stuff is great. In a pinch, you can use it as a pain reliever. Like it's made for or targeted towards a female audience, but don't think that you can't take one as a guy if you got a headache or something like that. That was a trick that my wife taught me. Because I was one of the ones, she's like, I had a bad headache. We were out camping once, and I mean, it was a pounding headache, probably coming on to heat exhaustion once again. And I gotten it cooled off, and I was getting fluids into me, but the headache was still pretty bad. She's like, here, take a couple of my Midol. And I'm like, well, that's not really what it's for. And she literally said, like, it's just Tylenol with caffeine, you'll be fine. Took some. Man, I felt like $1,000,000 on that stuff.
Next up, I have basic small towel.
Yep. I almost include that with my first aid kit, but sure.
Yeah. Comes in handy for a lot of things.
Washing yourself, your items, kind of the same dealio. Yeah. If you can kind of keep it clean while you're out there, you can get some multiple use out of it. But, yeah, it definitely... A face cloth is another one I throw in there. I like a face cloth in my hygiene kit with some sort of soap additive. Be it soap flakes or a little thing of soap or individual packet of soap or, you know, any of that stuff you nab from a hotel stay, because that's a big one I go to. I mean, honestly, it's there. I use a little bit in the shower there. I take the rest with me because I can take it out in the woods. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, since we're mentioning a washcloth, also a dishcloth should be with your cook kit. Keep your cook kit clean. And a bit of detergent that you would use. I have pretty biodegradable detergent I usually carry with me.
So whose idea was it to make the dyslexic do all the typing? Let's see.
Who convinced me that I wasn't the dyslexic?
Fair enough. All right. Duncan, I carry a bow tie and a hacks sack in my first aid kit. What's a hacks sack? Maybe we name it something different in a first aid kit. Bow tie because it's fun distraction for the victim. We don't use victim. The patient. And the hack sack in case there's a bunch of kids I need to... Oh, so actually literally like a hacky sack. So the little bead-filled bag that you kick around?
80s.
Hacky. Gotcha, yeah. Sorry, what was that, Ben?
I don't think I've seen one of those since the 80s.
Hacky sacks?
Yeah.
Man, no. I was playing with those right up into the early 2000s. Not that I was good with it, but I understand what you mean. You know what? Those are actually good ideas. Slightly off topic, but I carry an extensive first aid kit in my vehicle. I am a medical first responder, respond to the fire department. The majority of our calls are motor vehicle incidents. So I always have gloves. I have a pretty good... I got some pretty major stuff in there. I do carry a spare blanket and stuffed animals. And we carry those on the truck as well, but that is something that I throw in my personal kit just for reasons that you can probably think of, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, yeah, not a bad idea.
So those are a lot of the major things. The other thing I have in here is a flashlight.
Yes, I had lighting, just in general, because I'll bring my UFO candle, I'll bring a flashlight, I'll bring a headlamp, but lighting.
And after that, just because it hasn't been brought up yet, but always some kind of fire kit.
Fire for sure. Fire is a major one. I had it at the end of mine with a couple asterisks. Fire. More than one method.
Yeah.
Okay. See? Then, all that good stuff. But, yeah. Definitely a fire kit. And I mentioned this in last week's video. Even if you're going out and bow drill is going to be your main method, or you're going to use a hand drill, or you're going to be brave and try a fire plow, or a ferro rod, throw a Bic in your bag. It's lightweight, guaranteed fire, unless it gets soaked. But even then, you can generally, dry them out and stuff like that. But you can't beat taking a Bic and some sort of guaranteed fire starter, like a cotton ball with Vaseline on it, or some dryer lint, or actual, they make tons of fire starters. You don't have to use them, but it's there if you need them. If you get cold and you start losing dexterity in your hands, the last thing you want to do is start screwing around with trying to make some sort of overcomplicated fire. Get it going, get warm. There's no shame in it.
So this is the basic pack. I mean, there's a lot of things you can add to this, and this comes down to what you want. I mean, we could put in wood processing, and that could be any number of things, axes, saws, and all that. But you can camp very well without that. Um,
And I know lots of people that go camping and don't make fires.
yeah.
I don't know why, but they don't.
But I think the ability to have a fire, whether you have one or not, is important in case of an emergency or whatever. So this, you can add a stove to your cook kit system. You can add to all these things, but this is a pretty basic setup. And the intent of this particular episode, this idea, was to get you thinking about what you're taking and starting to build your kit. By no means are we creating one, and you can go out and find pre-made kits or pack checklists, and you can go with those. There's a million things. But our goal here was to get you to think about it, because when you go to make a trip, your buddy calls you and says, let's go camping next weekend. Running down and just throwing things into a bag without thought and process increases the chance you forget something, or more likely, if you're like me or Robert, because I know Robert does this too, you end up taking stuff you didn't need. You end up packing the same thing twice because you can't remember if you took one, and you get to camp and you're like, wow, I managed to pack 3 axes this time. Good job, Mr. Green.
I have a fold-up shovel that has never left my backpack, and I bet you I haven't used it more than twice since I've owned it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be in there.
Yeah. We do that.
Have a good night, Duncan. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
We do that because we keep hoping we will use it, and then we realize it's not all actually that practical.
Well, that's the thing. It was one of those military-style fold-up shovels that had the little saw on one side, should be an axe on the other side. I've come to learn that it might do everything in a pinch. It doesn't do any of them well. Yeah. It barely functions as a shovel well. Let's be honest with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like a bouncing Betty shovel is what we used to call them. They're only 1.5 feet long or something like that.
Yeah. You can make yourself one of those cat holes or whatever. But even then, not a good small garden spade would have done you just as well.
Yep.
That's something a lot of people would have thrown in there, and we didn't have in there. It goes into your hygiene kit. Always have toilet paper. That's part of your hygiene kit.
And you know what? Toilet paper double rolls too here. No pun intended. It's great for your hygiene kit. It's great emergency fire starter, because you'd much rather wipe with leaves and be warm than have to wipe with leaves and be cold. And as Dave said over in the comments here, I failed, in quotes, won't keep you warm.
Yeah. So, I'm just going through it. I have nothing else to add. I mean, I always can. Unfortunately, I do kind of need to skedaddle shortly. So,
yep.
But if there's anything anyone wants to add, feel free to send it to us. But just take this as an opportunity to sort of sit down and think about it. If you're planning trips in the near future, start making yourself a little pack list. The best method is figure out where do you plan to go, what do you plan on doing, and then make sure you have the items you need to do that, right? So you're going to go sleep for a night, make sure you have the sleep equipment. You're going to go bird watching, take a pair of binoculars. You're going to go swimming, take your swimsuit or at least a towel to dry off anyways. Just think about what you're going to do. A lot of it seems obvious. You're going canoeing, you're going to take a canoe, but also make sure you're taking the life jacket, the bailing kit, things like that. Take a look at
dry bags.
Dry bags. And there's methods. Don't think you're stuck to any one method. I've done it without dry bags. I've just used 5-gallon buckets and lids. Those are great. Now, hard to get the lids off sometimes, but hey, keeps everything dry. Pretty impact resistant.
Adds buoyancy to your boat as well in the event of a capsize.
Which I will do. But yeah, once you plan your trip out and think about what you're doing and put some logical steps in, you'll know what you need. And then if you don't see a spot where you're going to use something, unless you need it for an emergency and you're thinking that's a possibility, don't take it. You don't need to take the kitchen sink every time.
And we're bad for that. And we openly admit, at least I am. Ben actually is a little better than I am. I'm really bad for taking a ton of stuff I don't need. I'll be digging stuff out of my bag going, oh, I took this just in case. And I know just in case is never going to happen, followed by 5 more things that I took just in case. That I know is never going to happen. But what if it does? Well, the reality is, even if it did, you probably don't need it. But, yeah, the big thing, like Ben said, figure out where you're going, what you want to take for that trip. The list we came up with over here, it's the bare basics that's going to make you comfortable. Tailor the rest of the stuff to the trip you're going to take. Like most of what we have in this list over here, I have sitting generally in my bag right here. Yeah. That way, if Ben calls me up and say, "Hey, we're going camping this weekend, grab your crap," all I got to do is go, "Where are we going? How are we getting there?" "Oh, we're going over by a lake and we're going to take a boat." All right, well, I can throw in the life jacket and my water shoes and a couple other things around that. But the base kit is made and ready to go.
Yeah, and a turkey fryer.
And a turkey fryer, yeah. And a turkey.
We couldn't have an episode go without referencing.
No, last week was hard, bud. Last week was hard.
Okay. Well, I'll try my best not to leave you in that position again for a while.
It's all good. Life happens, and it'll happen again. But regardless, I think that's a good spot for tonight. Was there anything else you wanted to add into this, Ben? Like you said, I know you got some other matters you have to take care of there. So
I do. But no, thank you. It was great. Like we always say, get out there, have fun. Let us know what you think. Is there something you think we missed that absolutely is a must-have? And if you're thinking rope, yes, I thought about it. I just didn't say it.
I've gone camping without rope and have had success. You know what I mean? Because I had a tent. Why do I need rope if I had a tent?
I usually have, like my tarp, I usually have ties permanently attached to it. As we said, we could do an episode on any one of these items. And probably have on a lot of them. So,
and probably will again at some point in the future. That's such is the nature of the beast. As we learn more to share with you folks, we try and share it with you. And if you have stuff you want to share with us, like Ben said, get a hold of us. We love hearing about this stuff.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, anyway, from me, get out there, get dirty, have fun, play safe, and we'll catch you next week and all that good stuff. Night, everybody.
Night all.